The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Attention Ditto Heads. Attention Bo Scouts.
Goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley.
It's time for the Soul of Excellence.
He is a radio host here in New York.
The Rush Hour is on the air.
Rush.
Now here's James Golden.
We're doing absolutely everything we can. We have a national deployment office force, and we've fully depleted that. So at this point, we're fully stretched, and so frankly, there's not much else we can do. As the weeks continue, if this continues, it's not hyperbole to suggest that we may have to quite literally shut down airports, particularly smaller ones, if call-out rates go up and we can't. A lot of these officers can't afford to come in. I talked to one officer this week. She's a single mother, and she has a special needs child, and she can't afford to pay for her special needs child's childcare. So again, I believe it's frankly unconscionable that we have Senate Democrats that are playing, they're holding our folks' financial livelihood hostage over political games, political partisanship. So we really need to get back to normal order.
But you're right. At the end of the day, the best tool we have is to say no more dollars for this war that's making us less safe. And so I've been very clear. I will not support money for this Trump war.
And there you have Democrats, two different cases. One, of course, the continued partial shutdown of the government. They don't care. And the other, Chris Van Hollen, who likes to sip drinks with terrorists overseas, alleged terrorists, declaring he wants to defund the war. He wants to defund the war in Iraq. Never mind. It is Tuesday. It is St. Patrick's Day. It is Tuesday. Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. My friends, welcome. Fastest hour in American media. And there is so much on the table. The Save America Act. Send America. The Save America Act is on the floor of the United States Senate. I'm not holding out hope that it's going to pass. I'm going to be very frank with you. I just don't. Republicans, you already have, in the case of the SAVE Act, two Republicans that have already signaled they're going to vote no. One would be Tom Tillis, who is doing his best to be the new John McCain. Tom Tillis, North Carolina, in his final term, doing everything he can to make sure that he hurts the Republican Party. The other, Lisa Murkowski, Alaska, who's just unbelievably filled with TDS and wants to do everything. If Trump wants it, she doesn't. And Lisa Murkowski is another one. AP has a story today. What's in the voting bill that Republicans are pushing to the Senate floor? The legislation would require proof of U.S. citizenship for new voters. New voters. And has become a rallying cry for President Donald Trump, who claims that the passage of the bill will guarantee the midterms. Now, keep that in mind. This is for new voters. They're going to have to show up. Yet Democrats are saying that millions and millions and millions of people are going to be hurt by it, as if millions and millions and millions of people that don't vote already are suddenly going to flock and start voting. Millions and millions and millions. Federal law already requires voters in national elections to be U.S. citizens, but legislation would lay out strict new requirements for voters to prove their status. Democrats are uniformly opposed to it. They expect to block its passage through the Senate. They say the legislation would disenfranchise millions of American voters who don't have birth certificate or other documents readily available. Both Republicans and Democrats who would be newly registering to vote. How's it going to disenfranchise millions? Okay. Against the long odds of success, Trump has been pushing Senate leader John Thune to move ahead with the bill. Suggested Republicans eliminate the filibuster or find another workaround to pass it. Thune says, we don't have enough support to do that. Instead, Republicans plan to hold an extended debate on the bill for a week or more in an effort to try to appease Trump, to appease him, and make Democrats defend their position. So this exercise, according to the AP, is also they can appease Donald Trump. It's not going to work, because if they don't pass it, they're still not going to pass it. The AP decides to go through what's in it. The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the Saved America Act, would force Americans to prove they're citizens when they register to vote, mostly through a valid U.S. passport or a birth certificate. Driver's licenses in many states would not be enough. The legislation says that the identification must be compliant with the new Real ID rules, and also indicate that the applicant is a citizen of the United States, which few state licenses do. Why is this an issue? I'll tell you why. And you won't find the press discussing this, even though many of us already know it. Because some blue states have been playing fast and loose with driver's licenses. That's why. The real identification, the real ID rules were supposed to go in place after 9/11. And year after year, after year, after year, states ignored them. Certain states, blue states primarily. And at the same time, these states decided they wanted to hand out driver's licenses to illegal aliens. So, you want to know why driver's licenses aren't enough? Look at the shenanigans that Democrats have been doing with driver's licenses. And all this stems back to the Motor Voter Act. And at the time the Motor Voter Act was being discussed, and Carlos, you're in that age group of people, you don't even remember when all this stuff was happening. But those of us that have been following politics for decades remember, once upon a time, you couldn't register to vote in motor vehicle. It was two separate things. Then Democrats came up with this idea of the Motor Voter Act. Motor voter, where if you go in to get a driver's license, and they immediately tried to register you up to vote. At the time, Republicans said, you know what, this is going to lead eventually to fraud. They did. I remember this debate. And Democrats, no. No, we're not going to fraudulently try to impact voting through the Motor Voter Act, through the motor vehicles. So what did blue states do next? They passed motor voter, and all of a sudden you've got then states say, oh, you know what? Blue states, good idea if we let illegals have driver's licenses. Well, once you have a driver's license, and once you have legal government ID, supposedly, what's to stop you from voting? You've got an ID. Doesn't say whether you're a citizen or not. You've got an ID. It's assumed, hey, you're okay. So then we had 9/11. And then after 9/11, people realized these driver's licenses weren't really the best way to measure whether someone is an American citizen, so now we have new requirements for the real ID. You have to prove who you are. You have to prove you're an American citizen. And some of these states are complaining now. Real ID, now you need to get on airplanes after decades and decades. But the fight goes on over ID because Democrats have always played fast and loose with it. Illegal immigrants have driver's licenses even though they shouldn't. Well, we're told, but if they don't have them, why, they're going to drive anyway. And it's just it's happier and better for everybody if we just give them a driver's license. Anyway, a person registering to vote could also present a passport or a birth certificate. Most military members could also present a military ID. Shows where they were born. Most people registering to vote would have to present the documents in person, including who vote by mail. Advocates oppose that. They say the bill would crush voter registration efforts. Why? Because you have to show up and we actually have to know who you are. And that's what all of this is about. Democrats do not want people to know who you are. Now listen to Ted Lieu. Cut 7. Ted Lieu says it's not a problem. And why isn't it a problem, old Teddy?
Undocumented immigrants voting in elections, that is an infinitesimal problem. Just go and research on the internet. It is so small. And why is that? Because undocumented immigrants want nothing to do with the government. Because, again, to vote, not only do you have to vote, you have to first register. How many undocumented immigrants can go, yes, I'm going to give all my information to the government that's trying to maybe deport me? No way. Undocumented immigrants just aren't going to register to vote. And if you don't register to vote, you're just not going to be able to vote because it won't match a registration roll. So this is a problem that doesn't even exist. As I just want people to understand that. It's a problem that doesn't even exist, and it's going to disenfranchise so many people. And by the
Carlos,
way, the top 10 states with people without passports.
Just play it right now. Just cut 20.
British national now faces federal charges after he's accused of illegally voting in the 2024 general election in Harris County, despite not being a U.S. citizen. ABC 13's Sarah Al-Sheikh looked into how he was able to get registered in the first place. New at 10.
Federal investigators say a British man knowingly broke U.S. election law. According to court documents, Samuel James Hall, described as a non-U.S. citizen, is accused of voting in the 2024 general election, casting a ballot in races for president, vice president, Senate, and the House of Representatives, despite allegedly knowing he was not eligible to vote. The Harris County Tax Assessor, Collector, and Voter Registrar's Office tells ABC 13 it first learned Hall was on the voter rolls last June, 7 months after the election. Officials say they notified him and that Hall then canceled his own registration. The registrar says he was removed from the voter rolls and is not currently registered to vote in Harris County. Writing in a statement, quote, "As this is an ongoing investigation, we are unable to share more at this time."
Well, so you have Ted Lieu. Oh, it's an infinitesimal. People don't vote. Illegals don't vote. We have a British man, not a citizen, vote. And my friends, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have more. James Snerdley, fastest hour in American media. There are so many other things I want to discuss today, too. Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour, fastest hour in American media. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Rush. This is the Rush Hour with James Golden.
Bo Snerdley.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is the Rush Hour with James Golden.
Rush.
Welcome back. James Golden and Snerdley. Okay, so the SAVE Act has now advanced to debate. 51-48 was the vote in the Senate. Mitch McConnell surprised a few people and voted to advance it. Doesn't mean anything. And I just saw a post that said, this doesn't mean anything. He has to advance it to final passage, not just debate it. All we need is 50 votes in JD. No, you need 60 votes. The way that unless the filibuster is dead, which that is not the case, to advance this into where it actually passes, you're going to need 60 votes. And you can see already that there are nowhere near 60 votes, which means two things. You either have to have a filibuster, a talking filibuster that will go on and on and on for months, probably, until enough passage, and by the way, that's the way the 1964 Civil Rights Act was passed. In the beginning, it didn't have the votes either. Or you're going to have to get rid of the filibuster. We know what the votes are now. 51, barely a majority. 51 to 48. Clyburn, cut 10. Listen to Clyburn. He's out demagoguing it.
Well, it's unconscionable what Democrats are doing, where we obviously have a heightened threat level here because of what's happening in Iran. The fact that they let in 10...
That's not Jim Clyburn. Cut 10. Clyburn. Well, that wasn't Jim Clyburn, so I don't know where that came in. Anyway, Clyburn is saying that the SAVE Act will dramatically reduce the number of black, not voters, black Congress people. That's the latest one.
For instance,
here we are.
It's nothing but a throwback to those laws that were passed after Reconstruction that made it impossible for African Americans to get elected. And if the SAVE Act becomes law, it will reduce dramatically the number of African Americans that's currently serving in the Congress. And I think that what we need to do is spend our time working on saving this democracy that some people seem to want to throw into the ditch.
Now, I don't know how in the world that would happen. I'm going to have to deal with this one.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
James Golden, known popularly as Bo Snerdley.
This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Rush.
The SAVE Act, for instance, it's nothing but a throwback to those laws that were passed after Reconstruction that made it impossible for African Americans to get elected. And if the SAVE Act becomes law, it will reduce dramatically the number of African Americans that's currently serving in the Congress. And I think that what we need to do is spend our time working on saving this democracy that some people seem to want to throw into the ditch.
Well, I don't know who wants to throw this democracy, first of all, it's a republic, into the ditch. Oh, man. In 1943, Jim Weatherly was born on this day. Great songwriter. Wrote this one that went number one in 1973 by Gladys Knight and the Pips. You've heard his songs from Ray Price, Lynn Anderson, Glenn Campbell, Kenny Rogers, Garth Brooks, and more. He was inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame back in 2006. Also wrote The Need to Be, another huge hit for him. Now, Clyburn says that if the SAVE Act passes, the number of black Congress people will decrease. I don't know how that's possible. Most of the congressional black Caucasians, or as the CBC, as they call themselves, the Congressional Black Caucus, but the Congressional Black Caucasians, as Rush used to call them, come from some of the most gerrymandered districts in the country. They're districts written specifically for the black vote. And even if you had less of the black vote as a whole voting, they're still voting. And they're not running against competition from other. These are racially gerrymandered districts. So this makes absolutely no sense what he is saying. Okay, I want to get on to some other things. Folks, there is so much stuff happening in the world. I'm not going to spend any time, excuse me, folks, I'm not going to spend any time on this guy, what's his name? This guy, all these, Kent. Not Clark Kent, Joe Kent. This guy that quit He was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. How many of you even heard this guy's name before today? So he quits, and now he's all in the news because he says that, Trump didn't have imminent threat from Iran. And of course, the news media and leftists are glomming on to it. I could care less with somebody. We didn't even know this guy's name. We didn't know what he was doing. If you had said the name Joe Kent yesterday, everybody in America almost, with the exception of a few, would be, huh? Who? What? So I'm treating it the same as today. Who cares? One of the things that I do care about are things that are happening. Oh, the destruction of New York. Yesterday, let me see, I think I added that to the list of stuff just because I might have wanted to play it again today. I did. Cut 21. Let's hear it one more time. One of the most outrageous things I've heard in ages.
I think that nationally we should raise the estate tax, both to bring in more revenue and for equity reasons. I think we should be very, very careful about doing it just in New York because people are mobile and they're potentially more mobile later in life when their kids are grown and they may be retired. And it would really undermine the whole purpose of a move like that if people left. We'd actually get less revenue. That would be bad for everybody.
The business community has been
okay, so again, this guy wants to raise the estate taxes of everybody. He wants to drop it down to $750,000 from that's almost it's $7 million, or before you can go after people's estates, or it's a significant amount of money. But he wants to drop it down to $750,000. As I explained yesterday, folks, if you're a first-time home buyer, you were 20 years ago, you live in New York, maybe by the time you retire, your house is going to be worth maybe $700,000, maybe $700,000. You want to leave your house to your kids, or already he's going to take the money that you want to leave your kids. Now, if you have anything in the bank account and that puts you over $750,000, he wants his grubby little hands in your money. And he says, okay, so when people are retired, and this goes to show you he's not just talking about the elderly, he's not just talking about the rich. When people are retired, the kids are gone, why, they become more mobile. They could leave. So, in order to make this so that it's more equitable, let's do it nationally so that everybody, no matter where they go, they'd have to pay this tax and they'd stay here. Because we can't afford for them to leave in order for us to get our greedy little fingers on their money. They have to stay here. Or we have to find a way to punish them if they want to leave us taking their hard-earned money. This is what kills generational wealth. He doesn't want you to be able to leave your money to your family. He wants you to be forced to give your money to the Democrats who run New York and are running it into the ground so they can spend it on their priorities, like illegal immigrants, like whatever else they want to waste your money on. But you don't deserve the fruit of your own labor for all of your working life. He wants to put his stinking, grubby fingers on it and take the money from you and stop you from building wealth in your family so that he can take your money and spend it. It is despicable. Now, let's look at today's news out of the Let's Destroy New York as We Know It. New York City, $30 an hour minimum wage proposal is pushed by Mamdani. Experts are warning it would obliterate certain industries. The city council in New York City, this Democrat woman, Sandy Nurse, representing Brooklyn, put it forward, require employers to pay $25 an hour if those employees have qualifying health benefits, $30 an hour if not. Little Sandy Nurse, who's probably never had to meet payroll in her whole life. I'm not sure about that. Maybe she has. But I doubt it if you come up with this kind of a proposal. $30 an hour. $25 an hour if they agree that you provide enough other benefits. And so it's currently $17 an hour. So they want to push it up by 2030 to $30 an hour minimum wage. You know where they're doing this right now? They're doing it in Los Angeles for certain industries. And in advance of the World Cup coming there, they want to do it for the hotel industries. They're doing it for hotel industries. You know what's happening right now? As we speak, jobs are being cut. So far, and theirs went into effect in January. Read an article last week, somewhere over 600 jobs already, as people are grappling with it, these businesses, but more are expected as it climbs closer to the $30 an hour range. And businesses are contracting. What does that mean? It means they're learning to do with less employees. They're tightening hours because they can't afford it. They can't afford $30 an hour labor cost. But these Democrats who know nothing about running a business, who never have to meet payroll, who just think that they have a right to other people's money, whether it's their retirement money, whether it's the money that they need to run their business, they don't care. These people, every day that goes by, they're destroying New York a little bit, drop, drip, drip, drip. Everything they do, they're just destroying it more. By the way, payback is a B-I-itch. Zoran and his administration are getting rid of the government-paid lawyers from Mayor Adams in this sex suit that he's facing, the sexual assault claim from 1993. It is a $5 million sexual assault claim from 1993. Supposedly, while he was a police officer in 1993, Adam says he doesn't even remember meeting this woman. But he was being defended by the city. Mamdani and his gang are cutting that out. They're going to make Eric pay for his own lawyer. Super, babe. Super. Two more Wall Street giants fleeing blue states as they head south. We told you last week about Yamaha moving to Kennesaw, Georgia out of California. ExxonMobil is moving its corporate registration from New Jersey. They're bailing out of the high-tax state of New Jersey. They are headed to Texas. The trend continues. Here is, ladies and gentlemen, a story that I find quite amusing. Wanted to bring it to your attention. You know, in Seattle, I lived in Seattle for a brief moment. Seattle is California North. It's all the same mindset. The Antifa stuff, the out-of-control liberalism in Seattle. Seattle is where a lot of the strikes came with Starbucks. There was another Starbucks strike. I want you to listen to this report from Fox 10 in Seattle, Cut 1. I found it quite amusing, ladies and gentlemen. It's very brief, so pay close attention.
The Starbucks on University Way will close its doors next month. The announcement comes just weeks after the end of a 3-month strike at that location. The shop's last day will be April 5th. A manager at the University Way shop says that the strike ended because workers couldn't afford to continue without pay. Employees say they were not given a specific reason for the closure and that Starbucks told the location workers that they would not be able to transfer to different locations.
That's it. The little Starbucks workers, they had a strike. So they struck this Starbucks location for 3 months. And then they decided, we can't do this anymore. We don't have enough, we're not making enough money out on strike. We can't afford the strike, so let's go back to work at Starbucks. So they ended their strike after 3 months. And they said, okay, we're back to work. We don't like you. We hate you people. We struck you people, but we have to come back to work because we need the money. And Starbucks said, okay, come on back. By the way, we're closing the location. Yeah, you'll be here for about 2 more weeks. We're closing. And no, you can't transfer anywhere. We don't want you in our organization anymore. Yeah. I wonder if they've learned anything. Ever so often, my friends, Cut 11. Here's another news story you're not going to hear much about. Cut 11. It's Randy Weingarten, big teachers union.
Sometimes we lose, like in Florida. Even with a big organizing effort, the legislature rammed through a proposal by Governor DeSantis designed to decimate our Florida locals and their contracts. It effectively forces annual union elections where you have to turn out over 50% of your entire bargaining unit, or you lose your contract.
I looked at this, I said, what is she talking about? I did it. I found this story from CBS, and boy, this CBS story is full of vitriol and anger at Republicans. You can tell it was written by pro-union people. The Florida legislation wrapped up its 60-day session. It may go down as the least productive session in state history. They didn't address property taxes. They did nothing to bring down the cost of homeowners insurance. They ignored millions of Floridians currently without health care. They didn't even pass a budget, the one thing they're required to do by law. Instead, they passed the Senate bill, which basically demanded that teachers' unions have to have annual elections, as Randy and produce. The majority of them have to come out for it. Otherwise, they can be decertified as a union. If over 50% don't. And it's going to gut the teachers' unions, bargaining units down there in Florida. This story prints out to 7 pages of woe is me, how awful it is, how awful Republicans are, because the teachers' unions now in Florida and by the way, the police unions, they're okay. And the fire unions, they don't have to do this. But the teachers' union does. No wonder Ron DeSantis is Princess Diana's favorite governor. I tell you what, this is just really good legislation down there. Okay. On the war in Iran. I'm sorry, I've been used to saying the war in Iraq is muscle memory from years ago. The war in Iran. We almost have to take a break, but I do want to play this. The NATO chief, Mark Rutte, addressing his fellow brethren over there in Europe across the pond about relying on the United States of America. Cut 12 would be it. And here is NATO's chief, Mark Rutte.
So when President Trump is doing good stuff, I will praise him. And I don't mind him publishing text messages. And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other. And why do we need each other? I tell you. First of all, because also the US needs NATO. And the US is not only in NATO to prevent a mistake after the First World War, not to re-engage with Europe. And then again, the long arm of history reaching out to the US again in the Second World War, as Churchill famously said in his speech in 1941 in the US Congress. They are also in NATO because for the US to stay safe, and by the way, Arctic region is evidence here, they need a secure Arctic, they need a secure Euro-Atlantic, and they also need a secure Europe. So the US has every interest in NATO as much as Canada and the European NATO allies. But for Europe, if you really want to go it alone, and those of you who are planning for that, forget that you can ever get there with 5%. It will be 10%. You have to build up your own nuclear capability. That costs billions and billions of euros. You will lose then, in that scenario, you would lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. As Europe continues to complain about some in Europe. And Donald Trump, by the way, said, you know what, we don't really need your help. We wanted to see what you'd say. We'll do it. Don't worry about it. James Golden Snerdley, fastest hour in American media, continues. Don't go away.
Rush. This is The Rush Hour with James Golden.
Bo Snerdley.
The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's the Rush Hour with James Golden.
Goes by the pseudonym Bo Snerdley.
Rush.
Now, here's James Golden.
There's a story today in the Daily BS. Trump announces the first ever attempt to reclaim trillions in taxpayer money Democrats funneled to migrants. Stephen Miller basically alleging there have been so much money funneled into, Medicaid, free health care, other expenses that the Democrats purposely funneled to illegal aliens, and they're going to try to claw it back. BGs, we leave you with them today. On this day in 1979, the Bee Gees went number one across the pond on the album charts, their 15th studio album, Spirits Haven't Flown. It was their first album after the successful Saturday Night Live Fever soundtrack. This is one of the singles released, went number one. Tragedy went number one. I love this song. Too Much Heaven by the Bee Gees. May God bless, protect each and every single one of you, your family, your loved ones. Love and gratitude for your being here with me, allowing me to be with you, my friends. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow for the Wednesday edition of Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. Until then, I bid you adieu. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. You can hear Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour weekdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?